This is Dr. Henry Louis Gates, Jr. of Harvard University, and you're listening to Genealogy Gems Podcast.
Welcome to the Genealogy Gems Podcast, providing quick and innovative ways to make the absolute most out of your research time and creative ideas for sharing and displaying your family history. I'm your host, Lisa Louise Cook. Hello and welcome to Genealogy Gems Podcast episode number 135. Well, I hope you enjoyed the blast from the past that I brought to you in episode 134. Now, as you know, the first 20 episodes of the Genealogy Gem podcast have been taken off of the iTunes feed, and we no longer have them on the website. And that's partly because they were really too quiet. They needed to get remastered. And of course, once we hit the 100 episode mark, well, then it just kind of makes you think that maybe too much of a good thing. I don't know. There were a lot of episodes out there. But you requested it, so we brought them back. And we'll be doing that, I think, more so from time to time. Episode number 134 featured episodes 1 and 2. So I hope you enjoyed that. And we got a chance to remaster them so that they at least were a higher volume, a little bit better sound quality. So hope you enjoyed that. Stay tuned. We'll be doing that occasionally and bringing back additional episodes of the first 20. And kind of nice. I had a break. It didn't take as long to put that episode together. And considering how I have been on the road lately, it was really good to have a chance to kind of catch up. So I hope you enjoyed that. And in today's episode, we're going to follow up on episode 133, and that was my interview with Henry Louis Gates about his television show, Finding Your Roots. And we're going to follow up on that with a conversation with one of the celebrities profiled on the show, Linda Chavez. And as I said, I have been on the road, just got back from the Southern California Genealogical Society Jamboree, which is always a big event every year. And just before that, in fact, the weekend before, I was up in Kingston, Ontario, which is just east of Toronto, and speaking at the Ontario Genealogical Society Conference. But as you saw, if you got the newsletter, the Genealogy Gems newsletter went out about a week ago. I've covered over 33,000 miles since January. It's just incredible when I started adding it up. But boy, has it been a fantastic ride. At the Jamboree, guess who joined me there? Our friend, Steve Luxenberg, the author of Annie's Ghost. Gosh, after we did that interview, we had so much fun. We just clicked so well. And I said, he was kind of saying, well, I'd love to come and speak at a genealogy conference. I went, I know the one. Let me get some wheels moving here. And kind of proposed the idea to Jamboree to have Steve come and be part of the Writers' Conference, and then, of course, also part of Jamboree itself. So we kicked off the Writers' Conference with a 1-hour presentation, kind of a keynote address. It was the conversation with the author, much like we did on the podcast, but different. And I kind of wonder, is there a Barbara Walters Award? Because I got Steve to tear up, maybe even cry a little bit, talking about his mom. You know, isn't that what Barbara Walters always does with her interviewees? But we also laughed. He also shared all kinds of wonderful information from a writer's perspective on how to make the most of our family history stories and our writing. And it was just a wonderful way to kick off a terrific event. And they kept him very busy. He taught many classes throughout the Jamboree. And he and I went out to dinner one evening and got a chance to learn more about him on a personal level, but then also to realize he really, he's already got a new book in the works. And so we've got lots to look forward to there, but he seems to have a soft spot in his heart for genealogy. So we'll have to keep him involved in our community, and I hope that we see him again in an upcoming Jamboree. And let's see here, Ontario Genealogical Society. The interesting thing about that was I didn't realize that when you get to Toronto, when you fly in from the U.S. into Canada, they make you pick up your bag, go through customs, recheck your bag and drop it off, go back through security, through departures, and get on your flight. I had an hour and a half from my incoming nonstop from San Francisco to Toronto to make it onto my little hopper to Kingston. And put it this way, It was just like one of those commercials where I'm running up to the gate and I'm pressing my nose against the glass, and the gate person has already left. I can see the little plane, prop plane out on the tarmac, and I'm going, stop! And a very nice man in a big yellow vest saw me and took pity on me, and he got them to open the plane back up and let me on. Now, it was funny because the stewardess said, she goes, no, stop. I'm like, what? What did I do wrong? You're going to let me on, aren't you? And she's like, the guy in the yellow vest has to hold the prop on the wing. But, it's a security measure, and we have these rules, and he has to be touching that and holding that prop before you can step forward to the plane. I thought, you know what? If that prop starts turning, I think we're going to lose him. I just don't see how a guy in a yellow vest is going to stop a prop on a plane. But he did what he was supposed to. I grabbed my little bag and ran onto the plane. I don't know if I made best friends with everybody who was having to wait on the plane for me, but thank goodness they got me on. And it was by the hair of my chinny chin chin. So I made it to Kingston and had a great time. I like to think that I shook things up a little bit. My presentations are, we like to have fun. I just want to have fun. I want to have lots of great content. I want to learn great gems, take them home, start doing them. And so, it's kind of one of those things where I could start every presentation going, this is not your grandma's genealogy presentation. You're going to have to hang on because we're going for a ride. There's no sleeping through this presentation. We got a lot of things to cover, and they totally got it. They had a wonderful time. We had so much fun in our classes. There was so much learning going on. People were stopping me in the hall and saying, I used what you did and I found this, or, I can't wait to go home and do this. The number one complaint I get is I cause many sleepless nights. Many people came to me the second day and said, okay, thanks to you, I didn't get any sleep last night, so now I'm running on empty and trying to get through day 2. And it's because they were just so excited about some of the things that they were learning, and they were running back to their hotel room and trying it out and doing Google Earth things and just having a marvelous time. So that's a good problem to have, I think. And I just want to thank everybody at the Ontario Genealogical Society for inviting me up, bringing me all the way out from the West Coast. It was wonderful, and I really appreciate it. And gosh, prior to that, I don't even know if we ever did talk about NGS, did we? I think I told you I was going to come back on and talk to you about it, but I don't know, 2 trips have happened since then. So NGS in Cincinnati was great. I roomed with a good friend of mine, Janet Havorka of Family Chart Masters, and we had a great time. And of course, Cincinnati is the home of Family Tree Magazine. So Allison Stacy was there and Diane Haddad. Of course, Allison is the publisher of Family Tree Magazine, and I write for them quite often and teach some of their classes. So she took us out for Cincinnati chili. I hope I'm not repeating myself here, but there's just nothing like that in San Francisco. Okay, now it's just a chili parlor. You go and you get the big bowl of chili, and they put cheese all over it, and then they introduced me to hot sauce. Now, I don't know. Maybe I have totally missed the boat. Maybe I'm just not necessarily a hot and spicy person. I like Chinese food that's hot and spicy, but that's about it. Hot sauce is amazing. And I was just putting it all over everything. And my husband was like, you were eating chili with hot sauce and cheese? I can't envision this. I'm like, I did. And it was yummy, yummy. So we do have to kind of eat our way from one conference to the next. And it's really fun to try the local cuisine, and certainly leave it to Allison Stacy. She found a good one and introduced us to Cincinnati chili. So thank you, Allison. And gosh, I mean, that was my first time out to an NGS conference, and it was fun. Huge exhibit hall. I mean, almost too big. I mean, it was kind of mammoth. I felt like somebody was going to start yodeling and having it resonating from the rafters. I had a booth there next to the National Institute of Genealogical Studies, and oh my gosh, all kinds of people around that I knew, but it was so far. You'd have to leave your booth to go and talk to anybody. It was kind of challenging. But it was a wonderful facility, just huge. And what was really interesting was they were doing some kind of a gymnastics meet in the conference hall attached to our hall. So you see all these genealogists lined upstairs. You could see them through the glass of this 2-story exhibit hall. And they would be upstairs. And I'm like, what are they looking at? And then I realized they're watching gymnastics competitions on the other side. So anyway, they got a little mix and match there, but it was a lot of fun. So that's, gosh, I don't even know how I can tell you. Well, let's see. Oh, the other thing that was going on at Jamboree, a week or two ago, was that all the contestants for The Voice, which is one of those, it's like an American Idol type TV show. I haven't watched it myself, but boy, have I seen a million commercials. The Voice contestants were there, and also the top 10 from American Idol this last season. So you had all these genealogists wandering around the Marriott alongside all these little bebopping, 17-year-olds with the wacky hairdos, and they were all very styled. I mean, let me tell you, every single one of them had to have had their own stylist because they were so, chic and hop. But actually very nice people. And the kids were really nice. You could tell that they were excited. And the thing that you always noticed was that you'd go to bed at night and you hear singing. And maybe it's because of where my room was at the end of the hall. They would go out into the stairwell at midnight and start practicing. So I got serenaded to sleep more than once, and that was interesting, but wonderful talent. And so we were all kind of mingling around each other and having a good time. And I was so thrilled that my middle daughter, Lacey, was able to come and join me. Now, she couldn't get off of work. She's a working gal, and she's graduated from college, but she flew down on Friday night just in time to attend the great gala that they put on, kind of an Oscar night type of a feeling. And so she came down, we got dressed up, we went down to the gala, and what was really great about that? I met Margaret O'Brien. Now, most people remember Margaret O'Brien as a child actress, and she was probably best known for Meet Me in St. Louis. She was the adorable little girl in Meet Me in St. Louis, but she did a million movies. I have to say, it's interesting. My absolute favorite Margaret O'Brien movie is one that many people don't remember at all, and it was called Our Vines Have Tender Grapes. I love it. I love it because I love Edward G. Robinson. Agnes Moorehead was in it. But Margaret O'Brien was absolutely stellar. Talk about a talented child. She was incredible. Anyway, she was there, and she was kind of one of the, sitting at a table where you could go up to the star and get your, autograph signed. So I brought my original book from the 1940s that I bought many years ago. I think it was on eBay, of Our Vines Have Tender Grapes, and it had the photoplay pictures from the movie in the book. And I also brought an original movie card that I bought again on eBay years ago. And it's Margaret O'Brien sitting in the classroom in that movie. And the little girl, her cousin, the little redhead with all the freckles, is peeking through the window and trying to get her attention, and she's trying to ignore him. Anyway, she signed both of those for me. That was a thrill. I'm a total movie geek. You guys know that about me. And I was thrilled. If nothing else had happened that weekend, I met Margaret O'Brien. Absolute sweetheart. I'm sure she must be in her 80s, but she still had her hair kind of braided back on the sides. I mean, it was like this little girl, but she's 80. Not much different. Still very petite, very little chiseled, cheekbones, and just a really sweet smile. So that was fun. And let's see. So Lacey came for the gala on Friday night, and then she was there all day on Saturday and Sunday to help me out in the exhibit hall. I was teaching all day long on Saturday, so it was wonderful to have some help in the exhibit hall, meeting all of you who were there in person. And I hope she can do more of those with me, because it is so much fun. I still think everybody loves seeing her more than me. They're just like, oh, Lacey's here. That is so cool. Oh, now I have another story. Can you tell I've been on the road forever? Finally, I have all this time to catch up. We have to get your coffee because we have to catch up. On, let's see here, Saturday. Now, the thing you have to understand about Jamboree is it's a little bit of a sacrifice for me to go. And that's because my wedding anniversary, falls every year the weekend of Jamboree. It always happens. Our anniversary is June 9th. And let's see here, Saturday morning, I had finished one class. I was racing to the next one, and Leo Myers, who is one of the co-organizers of the event, kind of rushed by me in the hall, and he stopped. He said, have you seen Lacey? And I'm thinking, oh, no, my gosh, what's happened? I said, no, what? Where is she? Oh, no, I just wonder if you saw her. I said, no. I mean, I know she's at the booth. Oh, and I said, well, what is it? Should I go back? He says, oh, no, just you'll know when you see her. I went, what is going on? What is she doing over there? So I went and taught my next class, got back to the booth, and there on the table are 28 of the most gorgeous long stem red roses I've ever seen in my life. And my daughter is just smiling. And I looked and I went, are those from Daddy? And she's like, yes. And it was our 28th wedding anniversary on Saturday, June 9th. And he didn't forget. He remembered me. It was very, very sweet. And a complete surprise because normally we say, okay, we're going to just hold off. We'll just make a little temporary shift, move it a couple of days, and we'll go out to dinner when I get home from Jamboree each year. But he said he couldn't wait. So I was treated to these gorgeous red roses that I think were the envy of all the women in the hall. A lot of people came by and they smelled heavenly. So I guess Leo saw Lacey getting the roses. I guess they were brought in by the florist, and she had them and put them on the table, and he saw her, and he knew what was coming in store for me. So that was a big treat. So I have a keeper husband, I think. He's pretty cool. Okay, well, I think you know everything now. I think we're totally caught up. So let's talk about the genealogy news. There have been a few other things happening besides all this traveling I've been doing. First up, FamilySearch. They announced that they have hit the halfway point for creating a searchable index for the 1940 U.S. Census, which has been an unprecedented genealogical community effort. It's made up of more than 125,000 volunteers. Pretty incredible. More than 75 million names from the 1940 U.S. Census have been indexed, with 18 state records already available to the public on all project partner websites, including the National Archives and Records Administration, archives.com, FamilySearch.org, and FindMyPast.com. The records will also be made available in more than 7,000 public libraries nationwide in the coming months by ProQuest. And it's really interesting because even though you don't hear Ancestry's name in that list, of course, Ancestry acquired archives, so they are part of that list now. And following just 2 months, they've only been at this for 2 months, the volunteers have been indexing. Records for the following 18 U.S. states are currently available and searchable by name, location, and family relation. So here's the list: Alaska, Arizona, Colorado, Delaware, Florida, Hawaii, Idaho, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, Nevada, New Hampshire, Oregon, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, and Wyoming. And I'm sure by the time you hear this, there'll be several more. So that's a good thing. More states will be added in the coming weeks. You can follow the day-to-day indexing status at the 1940census.com website at their dashboard. And you can search completed states at familysearch.org/1940census. However, the 1940 census is not the only record collection that FamilySearch has been working on. They have recently added additional projects for indexing and digitizing records. They've got projects going for Argentina, Mecklenburg, Germany, Italy, Norway. And in Norway, they've got the 1875 Federal Census. This is in a multi-stage process. I've got some records from Panama, Slovensko, and Venezuela. So busy as always. Now, as you know by now, the TV series Who Do You Think You Are here in the U.S. has been canceled. I know, it's a bummer. However, genealogy-themed television in the UK seems to be continuing to thrive, which is great. According to an article on the UK TV website called UK TV Signs Deal with Bright Solid for second series of AFP Find My Past on yesterday. They say that Find My Past, produced by Lion Television, will cover a broad range of famous historical events. It's presented by Chris Hollins, and the new series takes some of the best-known moments from history and makes ordinary people stars of the show as they discover how their lineage links back to these defining historical occasions. The article says, in 2011, Find My Past became the first factual product placement. They call it PP series to be seen on British television, and it was the biggest AFP commissioned by UK TV. The first series of Find My Past reached 5 million people across the series. And this is interesting because they have had some resistance in the UK to product placement. Of course, here in the US, Who Do You Think You Are had product placement every single episode with Ancestry. So this is a great way to help finance the series and make the advertising relevant to the viewer. The article says that the new series will incorporate findmypast.co.uk, integrated sponsor titles and end credits, branded beginning and end of parts, product placement in every show, alongside branding on all online activity and marketing materials associated with the series. In each of the 10 new episodes of Find My Past, what they're going to do is 3 members of the public will discover how they have an ancestral link with a famous event from history. Each will trace their family tree, discovering along the way what their ancestors did, what their life would have been like, and the huge effect that that person had on this big event from history. At the end of each episode, the 3 contributors come together with Chris Hollins, the host, to discover how they're related to each other and how their ancestors have linked them through time. Pretty neat premise. Boy, you guys are lucky over there in the UK to have a great series continuing to thrive. So well done. And on June 11th, 2012, MyHeritage held an international online press conference and announced that it has reached the milestone of, get this, 1 billion profiles. Billion with a B. The billion individuals and nearly 23 million family trees created by the millions of families using MyHeritage worldwide constitute a gigantic network for discovering family history and connecting to relatives. More than 63 million registered users is what MyHeritage can boast, and the site is available in 38 languages, which I think is really the key to being able to expand it the way they have. Now, approximately 1 million profiles are added every day to the MyHeritage network, and on average, 600,000 new registered users join every month. They have a sophisticated technology called smart matching, which kind of fuels the new family discoveries by matching profiles in different family trees, creating new family connections every day for their users. Approximately half of the billion family tree profiles on MyHeritage, of course, are living people, which enables their users to connect with their relatives, and they can collaborate on family history research and share memories. But of course, privacy is always an issue. So according to their press release, protecting the privacy of users and their family trees, information on living people, of course, is not disclosed, and collaboration on family tree research is by invitation only. The other 500 million profiles who are deceased help connect the living through shared ancestors. The company's expansion into historical content following its acquisition of family history sites like World Vital Records and Family Link in 2011, and its April 2012 announcement to provide the 1940 U.S. Census free of charge. And Daniel Horowitz, who was at Jamboree, was doing a presentation. Unfortunately, I was teaching at the same time, but he was doing a presentation on their mobile app, and he really is jazzed about it. I've got to download it from my iPad and check it out because the mobile app launched in 2011 in December, so it hasn't been out that long, but he says, it enables families to share special everyday moments and explore their family history on the go. And they've already had 750,000 installations already. Pretty incredible. So you can check that out. Go to your app store, look for the MyHeritage app, which I believe is free. Ooh, I should have checked that before I got on the podcast, but go to myheritage.com. You'll learn much more about it. Okay, well, that is the genealogy news. That is my news from on the road. And next we're going to get your news. We're going to do that at the mailbox.
Bring me a letter from my old hometown, one with some jokes from my old pal Jim Brown. Bring me a letter from that girl of mine, saying that that is longing for me all the time. Bring me a letter from my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I bet he's glad. But more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
Okay, well, we have several emails here in the mailbox, and I just don't have them in any particular order. Let's just dive right in. Janelle in Australia, she writes, "Thanks to your podcast on creating a Google blog, I've started one of my own. I've only heard part 2 of the series, and I missed part 1, but we'll look for part 1 to listen to sometime as well. My aim was to have my ancestors' names out there on the net, so that other researchers can find me if they search for a common ancestor. I've chosen all of them that first stepped foot onto Australian soil, all 34 of them. Some are 4 generations back, some are 6 generations ago. Now when I search for these ancestors with Google, and even specifying blogs in particular, I get no matches for them. So the question is, do I have to have my ancestors' names in the blog title rather than in the text of the post itself for a search to bring up my blog post? Also, loved the 10-minute more song and have sent it to my other genie friends around the place. I played it for my very patient and long-suffering husband so he could identify with it. But the music was louder than the lyrics sometimes, so he couldn't quite hear it properly. Do you know if there are lyrics available so I can show it to my husband to read instead? Many thanks for all your hard work in making so many podcasts. I listen to them daily while I drive to college and back most days." Well, congratulations, Janelle, on your blog. Good for you. You know, when it comes to search, the first thing to know is that it takes Google a little while to get to all the new websites and get them indexed. So you may not see your blog showing up in Google search right away. That may take a few weeks. When it comes to optimizing your blog for search, though, you do want keywords included that other genealogists are going to be searching for. So lots of names, lots of places, lots of relevant keywords. Include them both in the title and the blog post. So you've got them in the blog post, it sounds like. I always try to make sure to get important keywords also into the title as well. It just kind of helps your rankings. Also, be aware that Google likes links. So if you have relevant websites that you think would be of interest to your readers for particular things you're talking about, a couple of links here and there show interactivity and an interest in bringing people together on the web, and Google gives that a little more higher priority. So including links is a good thing. Consider, of course, adding the location names in addition to the family names, and of course those other significant keywords that people are going to be looking for. And then give it a few weeks, because I think you're going to see that it's really going to move up the ladder as it gets fully indexed. And as for the lyrics, I believe, they are available on the Genealogy Widower, who was the artist who put that song together, 10 Minutes More. It's available on his profile. It's on his Facebook page, as a matter of fact. So I will put a link in the show notes to get you over, or just go to Facebook and do a search on Genealogy Widower. And I think that you can get access to some lyrics there, or ask him more about where to find those. Okay, Alvy in Florida, a longtime listener, a friend of mine. I ran into him at NGS and at a couple of other conferences. He says, "I just got back from my morning bike ride, usually an hour, and I enjoyed listening to your interview with Dr. Gates. He is such a fascinating man." Of course, I would never take away from the fact that your interview skills played an enormous role in eliciting the right responses. You were keenly aware of your audience and their desires. Thanks for your fantastic podcast. Well, thank you, Alvy. I actually do put a lot of time and prep into the interviews that I do, because I know how it is. I mean, if we just wing it, it's nice. We get some interaction, but I can forget things and miss things. So I try to look at it from your point of view, all of you listening, and of course the genealogist. And I'm glad that comes across. I appreciate that. And Richard in Sacramento also really enjoyed that interview and that podcast episode. He wrote, "I was wondering when someone would do it, and you did. Thanks. As all of the various genealogy blogs concern themselves for 3 years with Who Do You Think You Are?, Henry Louis Gates Jr. competed against 2 of those years. In both cases, I personally believe that he did a much better job than the NBC series. While the 2 series obviously hit on very different tones and reasons for their existence, and the Gates series do not rely as much on how to do it type items that exist on NBC, and was very heavy on African American history and history in general. I am pleased that you took the initiative to interview Dr. Gate. Thank you, Richard. And Jay in Brisbane, Australia, he actually wrote me a couple of times, so I'm going to just skim through here and kind of give you some highlights of what's on Jay's mind. He says, I really want to thank you for your show. Not only have I found each and every episode informative and inspiring, and yes, I've downloaded every single episode in iTunes. Wow, okay. There's a lot of them. He says, helping me get started growing my fledgling family tree, but you've also inspired me to start a blog to document my efforts and share the stories I discover. And you can check out Jay's blog. It's manybranchings.blogspot.com.au, as he is down in Australia. He says, I hope you have time to check it out and to tell your listeners about it. I just did. And I look forward to all the inspirational gems that you have in store for the future. He also says here, not only is the show informative and great for keeping me company while I walk to work, but you have a friendly manner and inclusive delivery that I feel like we're friends having a chat. Well, we certainly did today, didn't we? In our little opening segment. I'm glad you feel that way, Jay. Thank you. And he says, I just thought I'd share something that I've just discovered. He says, please forgive me if you've already know this, as I've only just got into tracing my family tree a month or so ago. Oh, I'm so proud of you. That's awesome. He's a newbie. Okay, he says, I signed up for a free ancestry.co.uk account. I live in Australia, but I'm tracing my mother's family, which is Jonkless and Jonklesses, which is very confusing and difficult, in Holland, my dad's family, Kadiraman, in Sri Lanka, and my partner's family, Eden and Ashton, in the UK. And also downloaded the free app for both my iPhone and iPad. I think he's talking about the Ancestry iPhone and iPad app. He says, what is wonderful about the app is that it shows me my ancestry.co.uk family tree and everything is up to date. So I can work on my family tree whenever I have a moment, even while standing in line at the supermarket. I can tell you're excited. You're into this. That's awesome. Okay, so you're sitting in line, you're waiting for your turn in the queue in the supermarket, and there you go. He says, I'd love to hear your gems for newbies like me, to whom all of this is a brave new world. It's all so confusing, and I'm so thankful to have found not only Ancestry, Family Tree Maker, which is getting heavy use on my MacBook, but also your podcast. I've already learned heaps about citing sources correctly, which I am so relieved to have been told about at this early stage. Well, Jay, I think you did the right things in that, my advice to the newbie is what I did with the Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast. That was the whole reason I did that series. There's 46 episodes. I know that you've downloaded them and listened to them. And that's really my best recommendations for the newbie, is to build that strong foundation. We start in episode 1. I wanted you to hear from experts who would inspire you and tell you their own stories. And then I want to talk about the nuts and bolts of how to do it properly, because there are key things that need to happen in every good, well-built family tree. You mentioned one thing, which is, of course, citing your sources, knowing how to do that properly, but also understand the difference between sources, primary sources, secondary sources, and then how to build on records and the order in which we build on our research. So that's what that whole series is about. And for anybody else listening, if you're kind of dabbling or you feel like you need to brush up, or it's been a while since you've gotten into your family history, go check out the Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast series. It's free. It's in iTunes. You find it on my website. It's the yellow logo family on there. This is Family History. But boy, it doesn't hurt any of us to go back and refresh ourselves on the proper methodology so that we're always, building a strong tree, not one that we're going to have to go back and rebuild in 2 years. That would not be good. And it takes valuable time away from new discoveries, right? New gems. Okay, well, here's another email from Ricky, another newbie. He's new to genealogy. He says, I got totally hooked on genealogy research this past January. In this short amount of time, I have gained a lot of information and documents. I've listened to your podcasts, all of the family history, Genealogy Made Easy. Great. That was what we were just talking about. All of the Genealogy Gems podcasts. And now I've started on the Family Tree Magazine podcast, which of course I host as well. He says, I just can't get enough. I've subscribed to Genealogy Gems, Family Tree Magazine on iTunes, and I am a premium Genealogy Gems subscriber. Thank you, Ricky. I appreciate that. He says, now that I'm learning how I should have been doing my research, I have a question. Should I stop and go back and try to do good source citations to all of the information that I currently have? Thank you for your advice. Okay, Ricky, the answer is yes, stop. However, although it sounds like a lot of work, you'll actually benefit not only by verifying all of the data and getting it sourced properly, which of course is going to pay off big dividends in the long run, but all genealogists experience new finds and insights when you're revisiting sources. So when you're going back and looking at documents again, making the source citation, I guarantee some new things are going to jump off the page. Some things are going to be hitting you in a different way than they did the first time you saw these documents because you were not as experienced when you did it. And that's a good lesson to all of us. We are constantly gaining in our experience. It never hurts to go back and revisit them. Make sure your database is clean. Make sure that you've got some good source citations. And while you're doing it, see if there's anything new that kind of jumps out at you and strikes a chord. Because really, you do know more than you did when you first got the information, even if it was just a month ago. Well, you talked about how much information you've already found. And going back over it really helps you see things in a new light. And let me say, you can continue on the path of locating new information and new data, sourcing as you go, and split your time. Spend half of your time going after some new stuff, half of your time going back and revisiting and citing those sources of the existing stuff. You don't have to do all or nothing. And sometimes we need the little perk of the new finds and new excitement to keep us moving. So don't eliminate that completely from your time is what I'm trying to say. Split it up. Make sure that you're moving everything forward. Good for you, really. Kudos to you for wanting to do it the right way. I think you're really going to be glad that you did. You have caught it early. And thank you again so much for being a premium member. I hope you enjoy it. And let's see here. A find a grave shocker from Roxanne in Vancouver, British Columbia. She says, I had an experience on Find a Grave that I never had before, and I just had to share. I have been a volunteer on the Find a Grave website for a couple of years, posting graves and helping out with photos. Occasionally, I would do a photo request for a relative's headstone, and sometimes my request would sit for months unanswered. Others would be answered within a few days or a few weeks. Well, yesterday, I put onto Find a Grave the details of my dad's cousin's grave in California. I was able to include the grave's exact location as I received that information a few years back from the cemetery office. I live in Canada, so I couldn't just hop in the car and visit the grave, so I thought this would be the next best thing. Lisa, I kid you not, but I received a success email from Find a Grave within half an hour. Oh my gosh. She says, I couldn't believe it. Is somebody playing a game and put something else up there? I clicked the link and oh my gosh, there was the picture of the headstone. And even more exciting was that the cousin's wife shared the same headstone. I am shocked. I hoped for a response, but I didn't expect it so fast. Either the volunteer lives next door to the cemetery to do this so quickly, or just happens to have a database in his computer of pictures from the cemetery. Either way, I am so excited, and I still can't believe at how quickly all this happened and just had to share. Well, Roxanne, I'm glad you shared. And I hope other people will check out findagrave.com. I love to hear about the genealogy gems that all of you experience out there. All right, well, coming up right after this, I've got that interview for you with Linda Chavez.
letter from my hometown.
It's here, the new version 5 of the award-winning RootsMagic genealogy software. It makes researching, organizing, and sharing your family history easier and more enjoyable than ever. If you're looking to take the next step in your family history research and start recording your family tree in your own genealogy database, or if you've really been wanting to make a switch to a much more user-friendly program, then do what I did. I chose RootsMagic, and I'm really glad that I did. Throughout its 10-year history, RootsMagic has helped people research and share their family trees with innovative features like moving people from one file to another with your mouse, a source wizard to help you document your work, creating a shareable CD to give to family and friends, and running RootsMagic off of a USB flash drive when you're away from home. RootsMagic also received the award for easiest to sync from FamilySearch for their work in interfacing with that system. Really, what are you waiting for? Download your risk-free trial of RootsMagic 5 at rootsmagic.com. See why professionals and beginners alike choose RootsMagic at rootsmagic.com. A little while ago, Cindy wrote in. She says, have you seen any of the completed books of life that Henry Louis Gates makes for guests on his TV show? I'd love to see one, or at least have a little guidance as to how to assemble one and what items to include to make it meaningful. I think it's a wonderful idea. Well, Cindy, I inquired, and unfortunately there are no photographs available of these books. Now, when you look at it in the series, it appears that they really just put one significant item per page, and they do it basically in chronological order. I asked Linda Chavez, who was featured on the episode, about it, and she said that hers is still in the mail and she hasn't received it yet. So stay tuned. If I get more information on that, I will let you know. But in the meantime, I do have my conversation with Linda Chavez for you. Now, she was one of the people profiled in Henry Louis Gates' television series, Finding Your Roots, and she is chairman of the Center for Equal Opportunity, a nonprofit public policy research organization in Falls Church, Virginia. She also writes a weekly syndicated column that appears in newspapers across the country and is a political analyst for Fox News Channel. Chavez authored Out of the Barrio, Toward a New Politics of Hispanic Assimilation, which was published by Basic Books in 1991. Here's my interview with Linda, where we talk about her experience being one of the people profiled in Finding Your Roots. I imagine that there are many well-known personalities who would love, of course, to have their genealogy researched by Dr. Gates. How did you end up getting involved with Finding Your Roots?
Well, I got an email from the associate producer, Hazel Gerland, asking me whether I'd be interested, and genealogy has always been an interest of mine, so I was very pleased to do it. And, of course, I knew Professor Gates by his reputation and always highly respected him, and so I was very pleased to do it.
Wonderful. Well, I thought it was really wonderful in the episode how you talked about your mom raising you to see yourself as an American first and not pegging you as Irish or Hispanic or anything else. The episode, of course, was really involved and focused solely on Hispanic identity. Did you have any reservations about doing the show just because of that focus?
Not really. I do identify strongly with my father's heritage. I grew up in New Mexico. Many of my family traditions come from my New Mexico Spanish background, and so, no, I didn't really have any problems with that. And I do think that there's absolutely nothing wrong in the private sphere in really celebrating what, your ancestral past, what you've done. I think the appropriate role in the public square is to come together and to not emphasize our differences as much as we celebrate what we have in common.
Exactly. That makes a lot of sense. Now, I was talking to Dr. Gates. I interviewed him last week, and we were talking about the experience for the personalities who are involved in the episodes. And he said that they do all this research, and then they just kind of sit you down for one day of filming. So how was that, kind of walking in and sitting down and just getting all of this history at one time?
Well, it was really thrilling. I knew a great deal about my family's background, more on my father's side than my mother's, because as the episode demonstrates, there were many prominent people in my family. They were very heavily involved throughout the generations in New Mexico history. So I knew where I came from. I knew when my family got to America, but I didn't know anything about their history in Spain. So all of that was news to me. All of that was a surprise and was quite thrilling. And even though it wasn't really part of the episode, because of course they tape much more than they can use, I also got alert to learn a little bit more about my Irish history. And that was also a revelation, because I really knew nothing about that, again, except approximately when my ancestors came. And they're much more recent immigrants on the Irish side. They came in the 19th century, whereas on my father's side, they actually arrived in the late 16th century.
Right. Now, you said that you knew a bit about your mom's side. And I was going to ask you, I know that you said that your mom is Irish. And I was going to ask you, of course, if you're interested in doing any research on her side of the family. What did you know about them, and what was something kind of new that they presented to you about that?
Well, I knew on my maternal grandmother's side, and they are probably English and Scots-Irish, not Irish as we normally think of from Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And I have actually the family Bible with their names recorded back to 1801, but I didn't really know where they were born, where they lived, until they got to Missouri in the 19th century. And from there I was able to trace, and I have traced them from Cahokia, Missouri to Sheridan, Wyoming. And I have my great-grandmother and my great-great-grandmother's pictures, and I have really a lot of things from them. I have a quilt. I have many of the sort of, family treasures that have been handed down, including a scrapbook that goes back to the Civil War era. So I do have some information. But again, I didn't know anything on the Irish side. And so one of the things I learned from the show, actually it wasn't in the show, but I learned from the research that was done, was that part of my family on the Irish side, who were Catholic, fled from an area of Ireland that was then predominantly Protestant, because they were in fact being persecuted. Mm. So it turns out that both sides of my family fled religious persecution and ended up in the New World as a result.
Yeah, fascinating. And they talked about the Jewish connection in your family, and I got the impression in watching the episode that you were definitely aware of it. Were there any great revelations there? Was it more than you expected?
Oh yeah, it was much more than I expected. I wouldn't say that I was aware of it.
Oh.
I had said to the producers that my grandmother had this odd habit of turning her statues to the wall. And I didn't understand it as a child, and she never explained it properly. But when I got older, and when there started being more emphasis on the crypto-Jews of northern New Mexico, it became clear that at least some of the families that came to New Mexico came fleeing Inquisition. And it was a logical place to go, because it was about as far away from the imperial crown and the forces of the Inquisition as you could get,
right,
in the New World. So I knew about the history of crypto-Jews. I had some suspicion, maybe, but I had no idea when they determined that 20% of my DNA has Middle Eastern Semitic roots. That means that that's only half of my DNA. That means my father's DNA is almost, would have been about 40%,
right,
which is really quite significant. And it can't just be from, my 10th great-grandmother, Benita Orozco. It has to have been from intermarriage between these crypto-Jewish families in their, 300 to 400 year sojourn here in the New World. And that was really interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, with so much, now, did you get to bring home the book of life, as they call it, the one that they put together for you?
It is proverbially in the mail. They actually keep it until the show airs, just in case there's a glitch and they have to refilm something. So
sure.
I'm told that it's on its way to me.
Wonderful. So now you've gotten kind of an onslaught of new information. What's your interest as in terms of going into the future and learning more about family history, or do you have other relatives this has kind of piqued their interest to kind of get together with you and work on that?
Well, of course, all of my cousins watched it, and I got emails from all of them. But this is actually, I'm hoping, going to jumpstart my new career, because my focus has always been on public policy writing. I've written 3 nonfiction books all about public policy. And recently, 2 years ago, I decided I started to want to write fiction. So I'm actually in a Master of Fine Arts program at George Mason University at the ripe old age of almost 65, and I'm about to finish my degree. And I've talked to my thesis advisor, and we're going to use some of this history as the basis of a novel I'm hoping to write. So the family history is very interesting. The whole story of, the Jews who came to America, the way in which they preserved at least some of the traditions, if not exactly the religion, the way Catholicism transformed that religion, and what it meant in terms of the whole culture of New Mexico. I think, gives me a real basis to have a rich novel that will go over several generations. And I'm greatly indebted to Professor Gates and all of the people involved in this research project for getting the work started for me.
Oh, now see how I was going to ask you if it had some sort of impact on your life, and it sounds like it just connected right in there. That is really neat. Oh, well, wonderful. Well, Linda, thank you so much for sharing your experience as one of the participants. We kind of feel like we participate along with you, and it's fun to hear your personal response. And I hope that you'll let us know when the new book comes out, because certainly family historians out there enjoy a good fiction novel about, history and family history. It sounds fascinating.
Well, thank you so much. I'm hoping that everybody will know about it, because I'm hoping it'll be a bestseller.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for taking time out to talk with me today.
Thank you.
Well, that brings us to the close of Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 135. Now, before I wrap up this episode, I wanted to share something that happened to me the other day and the lesson that it taught me about genealogy that I think that we can all benefit from. A few weeks ago, my youngest daughter, Hannah, came home for a few weeks break when the college term ended. So Bill and I and Lacey and Hannah, we all went out shopping on a Saturday afternoon. And when we got to the second store, Hannah wasn't feeling very well. So she said that she was just going to wait for us in the car. So I handed her the car keys, and we all went inside and we finished our final errands. The following Monday, I was home alone and I needed to run an errand. And I searched for my car keys. I couldn't find them anywhere. It drove me crazy. I called Bill, I called Lacey, and I called Hannah, and no one knew where they were. I went through my car 2 separate times. I just ravaged the house, looking everywhere, all the normal places I would have placed keys, in the pockets of my coats. Absolutely, they were nowhere to be found. Finally, I stopped. I sat down. I tried to visualize the last time that I had the car keys. Now, I knew that I had them when we went to the store on Saturday because I locked the front door when we left. So I know I had them. And then I remember that I had handed them to Hannah, who had stayed in the car at the second store because she wasn't feeling well. So if she didn't have them, that meant that they must still be in the car. But of course, I'd already combed through the car 2 different times. I hadn't found them, so I wasn't feeling very optimistic about doing a third search. But I did it anyway. So I headed for the garage for one last look. Now, as I opened the front passenger door where I had been sitting and where I had searched twice before, it dawned on me that I was looking from my perspective, when in reality, I last remember handing them to Hannah. So what if I looked for the keys from Hannah's perspective? So I closed the car door, and I opened up the back door on the side where she'd been sitting. And I climbed inside and I looked around. Nothing, no keys. Then I leaned forward as if I were taking the keys from the person in the front seat, which is what she did with me. And there they were, wedged between the center console and the back side of the seat in front of me, where I had been sitting. Now, there was no way that I could have seen those car keys except from sitting in that position, leaning forward. And like most things do, this got me thinking about family history. If we only approach our research from our own perspective, we will miss countless gems along the way. So the question I want to leave you with as we wrap up this episode is, have you climbed in the back seat lately? Have you visualized your research from your ancestors' perspective, going through the motions, even if it's just in your own mind, that they had gone through? How could their perspective help us to see what's wedged between the cracks of our own brick walls? Thanks for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.